Chapter 51 War, Days 5 to 10 The Fall of Bhishma. In the first 8 days of the war, the likelihood of victory swung from side to side. Bhim slew many of Duryodhana's brothers, and on many occasions came close to killing Duryodhana himself. The armies utilized many battle formations, each trying to outmaneuver the other. The loss of lives was devastating on both sides, but the rules of the war set out at the beginning were still followed. The most destructive force on the Kuru army remained grandfather Bhishma. On the 9th day, the Pandavas were on the verge of retreat when the sun finally set and signaled the end of fighting for the day. During the night, in consultation with Lord Krishna, Yudhishthir decided to approach grandfather Bhishma. Bhishma welcomed the Pandavas and Lord Krishna into his quarters. "How may I help you, children?" "Grandfather," Yudhishthir replied, "at the beginning of the war, you asked us to approach you at a later stage, to inquire as to how we may defeat you. If the war continues with you opposing us, we will have no more army left to fight. The time for us to know is now." "I see," replied Bhishma. "There is one way you may defeat me. Know that I will not attack or fight a woman, or one who has been a woman before. When I was younger, I abducted 3 princesses to be the brides of the Hastinapur king. But one of the princesses was already in love with another, and as such, she could not be married to the king. She was sent back to her kingdom. On her return, however, she was rejected by both the embarrassed lover, who I defeated in battle, and her own family. She returned to Hastinapur and demanded that I marry her instead. However, my oath prevented me from doing so. She took her own life, after first vowing that she will return in a subsequent life to bring about my downfall. On your army fights the son of King Drupad, the valiant Shikhandi, who has slain many of our Kuru warriors. Know that Prince Shikhandi was the Princess Amba in his previous life." Armed with this knowledge, the Pandavas returned to their camp. The next day, Arjuna rode out to battle with Shikhandi in his chariot. With Shikhandi as his shield, Bhishma would not attack him, and Arjuna released the full fury of his attack. Dozens of arrows drove through Bhishma's armor, and the mighty warrior finally fell. The arrows that drove through his body acted as a bed when Bhishma fell to the ground. The battle was halted, as warriors on both sides stopped to pay their respects. Arjuna and Lord Krishna approached, and Bhishma asked Arjuna to provide him with a pillow fit for a warrior. Arjuna shot 3 arrows into the ground, and the tops of the arrows provided support to Bhishma's head. Arjuna shot another arrow into the ground, and a fountain of water erupted to quench Bhishma's thirst. Through the night, Bhishma counseled family members on both sides of the army, and at the most auspicious time, he chose his departure from his body. Chapter 52 War, Days 11 to 13 The Trap. With the fall of Bhishma, the role of Supreme Commander went to Drona, the Master Arms Teacher. In addition, Karna now actively joined the war, leading battalions of his own. The forces of the Pandavas and the Kauravas were now evenly matched, with the tide of advantage ebbing and flowing. Duryodhana commanded Drona to capture Yudhishthir and bring the war to an end, but the Pandava forces protected their king well and counterattacked to attempt to capture Duryodhana. Drona used this to his advantage and assembled his forces in a concentric ring, with Duryodhana in the middle in a plan to lure the Pandava forces into a trap and slay their most valiant warriors. Drona knew that Arjuna would be the one warrior who could penetrate the formation, and as such, lured him away to the eastern part of the battlefield earlier in the day. The one warrior remaining with Yudhishthir who had the knowledge to enter the formation was the teenage son of Arjuna, Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu had the knowledge to enter the formation, but not how to exit it. The Pandavas came up with a plan for the young warrior to lead the charge into the formation, with the rest of the battalion following him. Then, together, they would be able to break out of the formation with Duryodhana as their captive. Abhimanyu's charioteer expressed concern. There was much responsibility placed on the young warrior. Abhimanyu eased his worries. "Do not fear. I am the son of Arjuna, the greatest warrior who ever lived. I am the nephew of Lord Krishna. Today, the war will come to an end." Abhimanyu charged into the formation with his uncles Bhim, Sahadev, Nakula, and Yudhishthir following close behind. Abhimanyu left a trail of devastation as he effortlessly cut through the Kaurava warriors, striking terror into the heart of Duryodhana himself. Among the warriors defending the formation was Jayadratha, the king who had attempted to kidnap Draupadi while the Pandavas were exiled in the forest. He was captured and humiliated by the brothers, and he thereafter went on a severe penance to obtain from Lord Shiva the means for his redemption. Lord Shiva granted Jayadratha the ability to stop the advance of the Pandava forces, excluding Arjuna, for a single day. Jayadratha invoked the boon, and to the surprise of the Pandava brothers, fought all of them and their allies to a standstill, keeping them out of the battle formation. This meant that the young Abhimanyu was trapped in the formation alone. Chapter 53 War Days 13 to 14 The Fall of Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu continued to cut his way into Drona's battle formation, striking terror into the hearts of even the most veteran of warriors. Eventually, Duryodhana's son dared to challenge the young prince, but Lakshmana was no match for Abhimanyu. The son of Arjuna cut him down with a single arrow. Duryodhana, mad with grief and anger, screamed at his supreme commander, "Kill him now, by any means necessary." Until then, Drona had adhered to the agreed upon rules of engagement. However, unchecked, Abhimanyu would now bring an end to all of them. He consulted with Karna to destroy Abhimanyu's bow and slay his steed and charioteer. Karna did as commanded. Then, all the veteran warriors, which included Drona, Karna, Kripa, Kritavama, Shakuni, and Ashvatthama, the son of Drona, attacked the unarmed warrior. Weaponless, Abhimanyu picked up the wheel of his broken chariot and continued his assault on the Kaurava warriors, slaying many. But as the numerous arrows pierced his armor, the young warrior slowed, and a mace blow to the back of his head brought an end to the prince's 16 years of life. On the 13th day of war, Abhimanyu fell, and with him all Dharma that had remained. Many miles away, the Princess Otara wept, as she cradled the unborn son of Abhimanyu within her womb. When Arjuna heard the news, he was overcome with grief. Then his grief turned to rage. Arjuna blamed his son's death on Jayadratha, who kept his brothers out of the battle formation, thus trapping his son alone. Arjuna swore to either slay Jayadratha the next day before sunset, or take his own life by fire. When the news of Arjuna's terrible oath reached Jayadratha, he was terrified and wanted to flee the battlefield. But Duryodhana, Drona, and Shakuni saw this as their opportunity to bring an end to the deadliest warrior among the Pandavas. On the dawn of the 14th day, Arjuna began his furious attack on the Kaurava army, targeting Jayadratha specifically. But Drona assembled his armies in a manner that shielded the terrified king. As the day drew to a close, Arjuna seemed no closer to fulfilling his vow to slay Jayadratha, and the Kaurava army grew in confidence. Lord Krishna looked at the sky, and the moon moved to eclipse the sun. With the battlefield in darkness, Jayadratha believed that the sun had set, signaling the end of the day's battle. He excitedly came forward to witness Arjuna's self-immolation. As he came out of hiding, the moon moved to reveal the sun once more. Arjuna released his arrow, and Jayadratha, the brother-in-law of Drona, was no more. Chapter 54. War. The 14th Night. Ghatotkacha. With the dishonorable slaying of Abhimanyu, the rules of engagement established at the beginning of the war fell away. The battle continued into the night. Ghatotkacha, the half-demon son of Bhima, was at his most powerful in darkness, and he unleashed devastation on the Kaurava army. Drona, enraged that the Pandavas had managed to slay Jayadratha while he was under his protection, fought the Pandava army with a vengeful fury. Meanwhile, Arjuna prepared himself to take on Karna. On several occasions, his older brother Yudhishthira had chided him on his inability to bring about an end to his rival archer. Arjuna had boasted of being the superior warrior, but Karna still stood. The prince was ready to make his final stand against his nemesis. However, Lord Krishna cautioned him. Karna possesses the Vasavi Shakti gifted to him by Lord Indra. Even you would not be able to stop this weapon. Ghatotkacha possesses both divine and demonic weapons. Let him engage with Karna first and weaken him. Arjuna reluctantly agreed to Krishna's counsel. Ashvatthama, the son of Drona, was able to hold off Ghatotkacha despite the half-demon's great power, as did Karna several times. But as the night progressed, Ghatotkacha's power progressively increased. His power of illusion struck terror into the Kaurava army, causing many to flee the battlefield. Duryodhana was desperate. He turned to Karna. "My friend, we cannot go on like this. End the demon now. Use whatever means possible." Karna had kept Lord Indra's weapon in reserve, especially for Arjuna. He now removed it from his quiver, spoke the mantra to charge the weapon, and launched it at the demon. Ghatotkacha had grown to a gigantic size, and he leapt into the air to escape the attack. But Karna's aim was inescapable, and Ghatotkacha was killed by the Vasavi Shakti. However, as he fell, he destroyed an entire battalion of the Kaurava army. Arjuna, watching from a distance, was horrified at the death of his nephew. Lord Krishna, however, simply smiled. Although Ghatotkacha had proved a valuable ally in the war, his demonic nature had caused many problems in the realms. If Ghatotkacha had not perished, Lord Krishna himself would have brought about his end. Now, his death served a noble purpose. He had rid the enemy of the one weapon that might have killed the Prince Arjuna. Chapter 55. War. Day 15. The Fall of Drona. On the 15th day, the Supreme Commander of the Kaurava army continued his relentless assault on the Pandava army. Spurred on by Duryodhana's insults, Drona set aside all manner of honorable conduct as he pressed on to win the war for his king. He slaughtered hundreds of thousands of Pandava soldiers by the hour, but the old warrior still held back when facing the Pandava brothers, most especially Arjuna, his most favorite student. Arjuna too could not bring himself to fight with full force against his former teacher. There were times that Drona unleashed a furious attack on the warrior prince and watched with pride as Arjuna countered and neutralized the attack. As the day progressed, Drona ended the lives of King Bharat, the father-in-law of Abhimanyu, and King Drupad, the father of Drishtadyumna and Draupadi. Drishtadyumna was grief-stricken. He was created by Drupad for the sole purpose of killing Drona, but his skills did not match up to the old warrior. At the beginning of the war, Guru Drona informed the Pandavas that he could not be defeated with weapons in hand. Now, the Pandava army was once more on the brink of annihilation. Lord Krishna shared a plan with the Pandava brothers. Guru Drona lives for his son Ashvatthama, as his son does for him. We must make him believe that his son has perished in battle. Only then will he lay down his weapons and enter meditation. This will then be your opportunity to put an end to the Kaurava Supreme Commander. Yudhishthir and Arjuna were uneasy with the plan, but Bhim readily agreed. Bhim killed an elephant named Ashvatthama, and during the battle shouted out to Drona, "Ashvatthama is dead!" Drona felt his arms go weak as he contemplated the death of his beloved son. But he would not believe Bhim. Ashvatthama was much too great a warrior to be easily slain. He brought his chariot closer to Yudhishthir, the just, the one who would not tell a lie. Drona shouted out his anguished question. "Answer me, Yudhishthir. Is Ashvatthama dead?" Yudhishthir, the one who could not tell a lie, shouted back, "Yes, Ashvatthama is dead." And under his breath, drowned out by the din of battle, he continued, "Ashvatthama, the elephant, that is." Drona, hearing only the first part, dropped his weapons and fell to his knees. He entered a deep meditation. Drishtadyumna, seizing the opportunity, jumped into Drona's chariot, and with a slash of his sword, removed the head of the old warrior, as Arjuna and other soldiers looked on in horror. Chapter 56. War. Days 16 to 17. Karna. On the 16th day, Karna was appointed as Supreme Commander of the Kaurava forces. Karna's life was one that was filled with tragedy and longing for greatness. Just before the war, Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, revealed to him that she was also his maternal mother. As a desperate teenager with a newborn child, she had set him afloat down the Ganges river, where he was found and adopted by a charioteer and his wife. Unknown to the Pandava brothers, and even to his friend Duryodhana, Karna was the eldest brother of the Pandavas. Karna resumed the war with fury. He had promised Mother Kunti that he would not kill any of her sons aside from Arjuna. That way, she would still retain 5 sons at the end of the war. Karna kept to his word. There were times where he could have slain Yudhishthir, Bhim, Sahadev, and Nakul, but he spared their lives. Arjuna was his lifelong rival, the prince that was revered by all. Karna had long envied the adulation that the prince enjoyed, feeling in some way that it should have been his. During the day's battle, Bhim finally encountered Dusashan, the brother of Duryodhana. During the insidious game of dice, Yudhishthir had lost their wife, Draupadi, in a gambling fever. Dusashan had gone to Draupadi's chambers, grabbed her by the hair, and dragged her down to the royal court. Bhim had sworn an oath to break open the chest of Dusashan, drink his blood, and collect the remainder to wash Draupadi's hair. On the 16th day of the war, Bhim fulfilled his grisly vow, to the horror of soldiers on both sides. On day 17, Karna felt uneasy. He was unaware of his royal heritage during his youth, but he always felt that he was destined for more than the humble life of a charioteer. He exhibited great fighting prowess as he grew, and he sought out the greatest arms teacher there was, the immortal Lord Parashurama, known as an avatar of Lord Vishnu himself. Lord Parashurama took an oath to never teach any of the Kshatriya, the warrior class. Karna deceived the teacher and presented himself as a Brahmin, a member of the priest class. Lord Parashuram agreed to train him, and Karna proved to be an exceptional student, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. One day, as part of his dakshina, teacher payment, Karna offered his thigh as a headrest for Lord Parashuram while the teacher slept. During Parashuram's slumber, an insect climbed Karna's leg and drilled into his thigh. The pain was excruciating, but Karna refused to move and disturb his teacher's sleep. When Lord Parashuram awoke, he saw the blood-soaked thigh of Karna. No Brahmin could endure the pain of this insect. You have lied to me. You are a Kshatriya. I have taught you all that I know in the art of war and archery, Karna. But this is my punishment to you. When you need these skills the most, you will forget all of them. Karna, the son of the sun, found himself in his final stand with his hated enemy Arjuna. They exchanged volleys of celestial missiles between them, each one countering the other, and they seemed to end in stalemate. But unfortunately for Karna, during the battle, his chariot wheel became lodged in a crevice. He jumped down to pry the wheel free, as Arjuna reloaded his Gandhava bow. At Lord Krishna's instruction, Arjuna released the arrow, and Karna, who previously had the skill to counter the attack, felt Lord Parashuram's curse take hold. He forgot all that he learnt. Arjuna's arrow struck, and he ended the life of his bitter rival, and unknowingly, the life of his eldest brother. Chapter 57. War. Day 18 of the 18-day war. Duryodhana was distraught at the death of his brother Dusashan and his dear friend Karna. The paternal uncle of the Pandavas, Shalya, was appointed as supreme commander for the Kauravas on the 18th day. He led the remnants of the army as best he could, but he was slain by Yudhishthir early in the day. The 98 remaining brothers of Duryodhana attacked Bhima in an attempt to avenge their brother's death, but they were no match for the mighty Pandava. He smashed through all of them with his deadly mace, leaving Duryodhana as the last living son of Queen Gandhari. As the day progressed, Sahadev fulfilled the prophecy of Bhima at the game of dice and ended the life of Duryodhana's uncle. Shakuni, the cunning manipulator, whose actions were instrumental in the war they now fought, lay dead. Seeing all hopes of victory lying in tatters, Duryodhana grabbed his mace and desperately tried to find sanctuary. He hid at a nearby lake, but the Pandava soldiers eventually tracked him down. Yudhishthir arrived at the lake with his 4 brothers and Lord Krishna. Reveal yourself, Duryodhana. Your army is gone, but I offer you one final chance of victory. If you can defeat any one of us in combat, you may retain your throne. Duryodhana emerged from the lake with his mace in hand. He chose Bhima, his childhood rival, as his opponent. Although Bhima had the greatest strength, during the Pandavas' exile, Duryodhana had trained many more years under Drona, Bhishma, and Lord Krishna's older brother, Balarama. He was the superior mace fighter. As the fight progressed, Bhima eventually began to tire. He caught sight of Lord Krishna during the battle and saw their guide tapping his thigh. Bhima was reminded of the oath he made when Duryodhana had lustfully tapped his thigh when he had won Draupadi in the game of dice. Bhima swung the mace low and broke Duryodhana's thigh. Duryodhana fell, and he lamented that the move was illegal in the rules of mace fighting. Bhima viciously kicked the head of Duryodhana. Where was your sense of rules when you attempted to poison me as a child, attempted to kill my mother and my brothers in the house of wax, when you attempted to defile our wife in court, or when you killed my nephew Abhimanyu? No, Drona, you now have what you deserve, a slow death with no one by your side. The Pandavas and Lord Krishna left the dying prince by the lake, but under the cover of night, 3 of Duryodhana's allies made their way to their fallen leader, and together made their final, treacherous plans. Chapter 58. War. Dark Night. Ashvatthama, the son of Drona, Kripacharya, and Kritavarma gathered around the dying Duryodhana. Ashvatthama whispered to Duryodhana, "We have seen the deceitful way in which Bhim brought you down, valiant leader." The Pandavas, in a similar manner, spread rumors about my death in order to slay my father. I will avenge you both. Duryodhana weakly smiled and commanded Kripacharya and Kritavarma to anoint Ashvatthama as the final supreme commander of the Kauravas. The trio returned to their camp, and Ashvatthama mulled over a way to overcome their enemy. As he stared into the distance, he spotted an owl. The owl descended into a tree and killed the birds resting in their nests. A sinister plan formed in his mind. The three warriors infiltrated the Pandava camp that very night, with the intention of slaying the Pandavas in their sleep. To their dismay, the brothers did not return to camp, but in their stead they found the Upa-Pandavas, the 5 sons of Draupadi. Ashvatthama killed them while they slept, and then crept into Drishtadyumna's quarters. And while the warriors slept, Ashvatthama slayed the brother of Draupadi as well. The trio moved through the camp and slaughtered the remaining forces of the Pandava army. In the still of the night, they then set the camp on fire. Ashvatthama returned to their fallen prince, Duryodhana, and delivered the details of their grisly deed. Duryodhana smiled and departed his mortal body. When the news reached the Pandava brothers, they were distraught. They sent for Draupadi and delivered the heart-wrenching message. Draupadi fainted, overwhelmed with grief. She had lost her father, brother, and all of her children in the conflict. With the revelation of Ashvatthama's involvement, Lord Krishna cautioned Arjuna, for Ashvatthama possessed knowledge of a weapon of immense power. The brothers found the son of Drona at sage Vyasa's ashram near the bank of the Ganges. Ashvatthama was surprised that he was so quickly discovered. He picked up a blade of grass and charged it with the divine mantra, and then released against the brothers a celestial missile, one of the most destructive and irresistible weapons known to the gods, the Brahmastra. Chapter 59. The End. As the Pandava brothers saw the Brahmastra hurtling towards them, Arjuna released a counter-weapon. This prompted the intervention of sage Vyasa and sage Narada. A collision between these two weapons would create 12 years of drought. Time stopped as the sages advised Arjuna and Ashvatthama to recall their weapons. Arjuna, who had the knowledge to do so, recalled his weapon. Ashvatthama, however, did not have the skill to recall his weapon. Instead, he redirected the celestial missile to find and kill any lineage of the Pandavas that remained. The Brahmastra redirected towards the womb of Princess Uttara, who carried the child of Prince Abhimanyu, the grandchild of Prince Arjuna. Sensing this redirection, Lord Krishna dissolved the weapon himself. Ashvatthama, having fulfilled his vengeance for his father Drona and leader Duryodhana, surrendered himself to the Pandavas. The brothers, on instruction from sage Vyasa, spared his life out of reverence for Drona, their childhood teacher. Ashvatthama was born with a gem on his forehead, which protected him from hunger, thirst, fatigue, old age, diseases, weapons, and deities. As punishment for his crimes, Lord Krishna ordered Ashvatthama to cut the gem from his forehead and cursed him to wander the forest alone and shunned by all until the end of the Kali Yuga. During this time, the wound on his forehead would not heal. The Pandavas and Lord Krishna returned to Hastinapur. The people were heartbroken. Many of their loved ones were slain in the war. Mother Kunti finally revealed the truth of Karna being the Pandavas' eldest brother. the brothers were grief-stricken, and they performed the final rites for the family members and friends who perished in the war. Queen Gandhari blamed Lord Krishna for the death of her 100 sons, and she cursed him that the Yadava clan would come to an end, and that Lord Krishna himself would die like an ordinary mortal. Lord Krishna accepted the curse of the devoted mother Gandhari, the queen who had blindfolded herself since marriage, so that she would experience the world in the same way as her blind husband. Years later, conflict broke out between members of the Yadava clan, and the lineage came to an end. One morning, when Lord Krishna rested in the forest, a hunter mistook him for prey and shot an arrow that pierced his ankle. Fulfilling the curse of Gandhari, Lord Krishna departed the mortal plane. Epilogue. Yudhishthira ruled the kingdom for 36 years, and during the time of his rule, the lands experienced peace and prosperity. When the Pandavas heard the news of Lord Krishna's passing, they too decided to leave the mortal plane. The kingship was passed to Parikshit, the grandson of Arjuna. The Pandavas and Draupadi departed on foot for the pinnacle of Mount Meru, the path to the heavenly plain. As they departed the city, a stray dog accompanied them on their journey. The path was long and arduous. They continued up the steep mountain. Eventually, Draupadi, in exhaustion, fell to her death. Bhim, who followed behind Yudhishthira, yelled out, "Why did she fall, Yudhishthira?" And Yudhishthira, the wise, replied, "Draupadi loved all her husbands, but she loved Arjuna the most, and therefore she fell." The 5 brothers and the stray dog continued their journey. Next, Sahadev fell. "Why did he fall, Yudhishthira?" asked Bhim. He was very proud of his wisdom, and felt there was no one equal to him in his wisdom, and so he fell. The next to fall was Nakul. "Why did he fall, Yudhishthira?" asked Bhim. He was very proud of his beauty, and so he fell. Then Arjuna fell. And again Bhim asked Yudhishthira the just, "Why did he fall?" He was very proud of his abilities as a warrior, and felt there was no one equal to him as a warrior, and so he fell, replied Yudhishthira. Finally, Bhim fell, and Yudhishthira muttered to himself. He was gluttonous, and didn't care for the hunger of others, and so he fell. At last, Yudhishthira reached the top of the mountains, and alongside him the stray dog that had followed him since the city many miles away. A celestial craft descended from the heavens, and Lord Indra stepped out. "Congratulations, Yudhishthira. You are the first to have earned the honor of achieving the heavens while still in mortal form." As Yudhishthira stepped into the vehicle, the dog followed him. "Stop," said Lord Indra. "The dog cannot be allowed into the heavens. It must remain here." Yudhishthira stepped out of the chariot. "This dog has walked the same path as I have, and endured all the same hardships that I did to get here. If it is not allowed to complete the journey to the heavens, then I will remain here as well." Lord Indra tried to convince Yudhishthira otherwise, but he remained steadfast in his decision. A bright light enveloped the dog, and in its place stood Lord Dharmaraj, the spiritual father of Yudhishthira. "Congratulations, Yudhishthira. Once more you demonstrate your perfect virtues and sense of justice. I am pleased." Yudhishthira accompanied Lord Indra to the heavens, and was surprised when he arrived to see Duryodhana and the rest of the Kauravas. He looked around, and his brothers and Draupadi were nowhere to be seen. "Where are my brothers and Draupadi?" asked Yudhishthira. Lord Indra asked Yudhishthira to follow him down a dark staircase, and they descended into hell. The smell of brimstone and the cry of tortured souls assaulted Yudhishthira's senses. he could hear his brothers and Draupadi crying out in pain. "Why are my brothers and Draupadi here, and the Kauravas in heaven?" asked Yudhishthir. "The Kauravas have paid for their sins on the battlefield. Your brothers and Draupadi must still suffer the pain of the sins they have committed," replied Lord Indra. "Then I shall remain here until they have completed their penance," replied Yudhishthir. And Yudhishthir settled down into the scorching earth, engulfed in the stench of rotting flesh. After what seemed like an eternity, Lord Dharmaraj revealed himself once more, and the illusion of hell faded away. "You have passed your final test, Yudhishthir. All kings must face the fire of hell to stay truthful." Yudhishthir joined his family in the heavens and gave up his mortal body. The broken tusk Lord Ganesha used as a writing instrument finally came to a stop as Sage Vyasa finished his narration. Lord Ganesha's writing tool had failed during the transcription, and he had broken off one of his tusks to continue the capturing of Sage Vyasa's tale. And so ended one of the greatest collaborations between God and man, the Mahabharata. Thank you for watching so far. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're new here, please subscribe. This will ensure that more people can find this resource. Click the notification button so that you can be the first to know about new uploads. And please do comment below. I'll do my best to reply to any questions. Thank you.